G'day and welcome to the Game Day Squad Fantasy Cricket Show. I'm Stu, and this is where I normally say, and that's Dyl, but I'm not doing that tonight. That is, in fact, the honorary fantasy bro, Bales. Look, the illness that got the best of Dyl during last round's episode has gotten the better of him, so unfortunately, he won't be taking his place in tonight's preview. Bales, thanks for joining me at short notice, mate, to talk through all things Aus Cricket Round 5 related. Do you want to let viewers know a little bit about yourself and your fantasy background?
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, thanks, Stewie. Yeah, g'day, viewers and listeners. It's been a minute, obviously, from the AFLW season, doing the Women's Aussie Rules on Game Day Squad. Obviously, a lot of you know me from as well, and done a couple of guest appearances as well on the men's footy as well on a Game Day Squad. So yeah, been familiar with the Game Day Squad platform, which is good. And yeah, Big Bash is it's been a good season so far. Been a bit frustrating with some teams and a few low scores, late changes, injuries, everything like that. So, but we crack on for another week, and hopefully we can get some more big scores into our squads.
That's right, mate. Yeah, fingers crossed. Hey, how are the squads going? Any top 20 placings at the moment?
Yeah, so currently 19th in starter, which is good. This first round, I actually accidentally left Steckity in my lineup, and I was changing it right as the lockout happened. So that was unfortunate, but still happy to be 19th there. And I'm just outside the top 20 in Classic and Challenger as well. And I think I'm about 26th or so in Champion. And that's considering I don't really have many of the diamonds and your high-end platinums to really be competing. So I'm just doing that for a couple extra prizes if I can jag a top sort of 20 finish weekly. But yeah, no, it's been solid, but just not quite those top sort of 10 numbers I was familiar with during the women's footy season. That was good. So hopefully we can get some big finishes in the second half of the Big Bash season.
Absolutely. Yeah, good on you, mate. And that's a good reminder for all of our viewers that they can be winning weekly prizes and not just seasonal prizes as well. So even if you're someone that hasn't yet signed up to play Game Day Squad, make sure you still do so because you can still win some fantastic cash and pack prizes. For all new users, simply jump onto the website or download the app, sign up using the promo code FBAC24, and you'll get a 3-player rare pack to get your squad started. You'll also get a handful of bronze players, and they can go straight into that starter squad. So you can compete against Bales and myself and Dyl as well, and try to get yourself onto that leaderboard. So plenty of prizes to be won each round, as well as overall as well. Bales, we'll get into it. We've got plenty to cover before round 5 kicks off tonight. We've got actually a double game happening tonight, and it's a bit of a shortened round as well with only 4 matches. There are no teams playing twice this round, so plenty of strategy will come into this round, no doubt. So we'll preview the top scorers from round 4. We'll look at all of the matches for round 5. And Bales and I will discuss all of the relevant players that we think should be in our starting lineups for all of those matches. And of course, we'll finish off with the Brodown Showdown that Dyl and I have been competing against each other so far this season. So, Bales, top performers. We saw some pretty big numbers, and not necessarily by all the players on double games. We saw Chrissy Lynn top score with the batsman and wicketkeeper position for 114 points. Sorry, what did you make of his performance?
New Year's Eve, not very good. And then complete polar opposite in the game against the Renegades at Marvel.
Yeah,
I thought we Josh Brown being the only sort of batsman in the first innings that got hold of it. I wasn't sure how the strikers were going to go about chasing a lower total, just because I thought the pitch was doing a little bit the inconsistent bounce. But Lenny looked back to prime Lynn, and he was opening as well, which was good. When the team sheets got announced, I saw his name was at the top, and I thought, okay, well, if he's going to open, that'd be interesting. Put Pope down the order, and he was great. And I was happy because the card on screen there, that goal one, was in my classic team, which I was very, very happy about. So he was really good, and he's definitely in consideration, I think, moving forward. I think once that player gets that innings, if they've had a bit of a slump in form, they get that innings, that can then help build not only his innings, but hopefully the strikers moving forward as well.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And that was an impressive performance for sure. We saw the all-rounder of Chris Jordan finally put together a little bit with both bat and ball. He only scored 16 runs off the bat, but he did get 3 wickets. He got 10 dot balls and a catch in the outfield as well. So Dyl and I spoke pretty highly of this man in the Hurricanes preview, and he sort of hasn't really lived up to those expectations yet, but it was finally nice to see him get amongst those points. And the Hobart Hurricanes do have 2 matches in a round coming up, so he might be someone that comes into consideration eventually. And then we also saw Xavier Bartlett score a massive 110 for the bowlers in a losing side. I think that wasn't it? And you took him out of your team, didn't you, Bales?
Yes, yep. Because challenge is the one that I mainly sort of focus on, just because I don't have quite enough to compete high at champions. So I took Bartlett's platinum out of my challenger and moved in my champion. So I still had him there, but it just wasn't in the sort of the team that I really wanted him in. And I actually swapped him with Ben Dwarshuis, which was not a good change at all, unfortunately. But yeah, Bartlett, it was the only real bowler that was able to keep the Heat sort of their figures okay, but the other bowlers really struggled. But Bartlett, no, he's a very, very good bowler, and he's played for Australia a few times now. So, yep, he's going to be in our teams a lot more in the rest of the season.
Yeah, and that combination he has with Spencer Johnson is just elite, isn't it? But there might be occasions where we sort of can only pick one of them, and there's every chance that one of them goes off and the other one does very little. And just hope we're on the right side of that coin. All right, mate, let's get into the previews for the 4 round 5 matches. We'll start with tonight's match, which is between the Sixers and the Heat. I just might get anyone in the comments section who might want to help out with some team lists when they come out in the next half an hour or so, or any weather updates. If anyone's got their Google out, or if anyone lives near Coffs Harbour, that'll be great, because the weather could play a pretty crucial role in some of the players that we want to pick. You know, the Sixers and the Heat have some really, really valuable players for game day squad. But if the weather's around and the game's going to be shortened, then we might have to consider leaving them out. But yeah, that game is at Coffs Harbour Stadium. It's on at 5:05 AEST this evening. There is a bit of chance of showers, so we'll check the weather forecast in a moment. These two sides actually played at the Coffs Harbour Stadium last season. It was rain affected as well, would you believe? The Sixers batted first and they scored 141 in their 20 overs, and the Heat reached a revised target of 104 in 14 overs. Philippi top scored in that match for the Sixers with 41, and then Josh Brown for the Heat scored 43. Walter got 23 not out, and Benny Dwarshuis was the pick of the bowlers for the Sixers, taking 1 for 7. The Sixers are a side you really want to be using in your game day squad, because they allow the lowest total points to opposition players, but they also score on average the highest points across the 11 positions. The Heat also allow the 3rd highest amount of points. So we'll probably be looking at favouring some Sixers plays in our lineups this evening. And the Heat have scored on average just the 32, and they're the 2nd lowest overall. So those stats tend to favour the addition of Sixers players over Heat. Just some quick squad news. We've got Michael Neser named in that Heat squad. He might make his return. He was in the squad last game as well, so his return obviously can't be too far away. But Bales, let's start talking about some blokes we might be including into our lineups. I've got a few names here. Are you looking at, is there anyone else that might be useful outside of Edwards, Philippi, and Dwarshuis?
Well, I'm probably going to be a bit in maybe sort of my own sort of island here. I'm actually not playing any players from the game, and
wow,
there's so many players in the teams here, like from Sixers and Heat, that I want to play across all 4 of my squads. But just with the rain and potential weather, if the game is like 5 overs and it gets either called off or if it's shortened, there's not going to be a lot of fantasy points really to go around. So I think if you want to go down that path and not play any, then you can. But obviously the risk of there not being that much weather and them getting at least even a 10, 15 over game and players scoring well, that's the risk I guess I'm taking on, and maybe people, viewers out there, don't want to take that risk on. So I don't know about you, Stu, but I'd probably only be looking at the players that bowl at the beginning, like your Dwarshuis, your Bartletts, your Johnsons, or your batsmen, like your opening batsman, like your Philippi, even like if McSweeney bats at 3, James Vince, something like that. Would you agree with that? Would you be playing the batsmen the higher up, or the bowlers that are pretty much guaranteed to bowl?
Yeah, I think that's the way to go for, well, not just this game, I guess, but for a lot of games. We want to get those players with the best roles, and definitely those opening bowlers, opening bats. But yeah, the problem is if we pick the opening bowlers from one team and the opening bats from the other, then I hate watching that when your bowlers bowling to your batsmen, and something's always bound to go wrong. But mate, we might make an agreement here. How about we finish this live show with at least 10 minutes before that first ball, so that we can get a good gauge of the weather. We can whack on the telly and have a look at how that weather is going to make some changes to our teams if we need to. I know Dyl and I have left it to late for a lot of our shows, and we've had almost no time to make changes. You remember the Chris Lynn out debacle when Short came in, and so we were quite flustered during that round. So because there's weather around, we're going to stop this at least 5 to 10 minutes before that first ball is bowled, so we can make any of those changes we need to. Make the spot on, I think, with discussing those opening bowlers, and that's why I am leaning towards Benny Dorshus as a must in my lineup. He's been in my lineup the last couple of weeks. He didn't go so well last week because Jack Bird stole all the wickets off him. But you know what, Jack Bird won't be on that. Bird won't be on that team sheet this week because he's having a rest. So what that means is Dwarshuis is back to that strike bowler, and there's every chance that he might get a bag full as well. Also, if the conditions are a little bit cloudy, a little bit rainy, and that sort of thing, that could favour his bowling. And if the Sixers bowl first, I think he's just about a lock in my team. I also like the look of Edwards as well. I know he slipped down the batting order to about 6 last round, but I like his ability with the ball as well. And if he needs to come in with the bat, he's obviously very capable there as well. We saw with the Sixers without Shawnee Abbott that Jack Edwards got plenty more overs with the ball as well. So I think those two are super likely to go well with the ball tonight, but also every chance with the bat as well if needed, because they're both in a bit of form with the stick too.
Yeah. Benny Dwarshuis is probably the one if the Sixers do bowl first, that if the weather's looking okay to start the game, that could be where you launch in and start a Benny Dwarshuis. Because even if he gets a couple of overs, we know that the sort of bowler he is, he can take 2-3 wickets in clumps. So that would be one that if they do bowl. But I guess if they bat first, Stewie, would that maybe make you sort of tend away, or do you think Dwarshuis is still you're pretty comfortable putting him in?
Yeah, that's a tough one, mate. I know the Sixers like to chase. That's sort of been their go-to over the last couple of rounds, and I'm just hoping that I'm just expecting them to bowl first. So yeah, that would be a bit of a spanner. I might even take into someone like Xavier Bartlett in consideration if the Heat bowl first. I just want a bowler bowling early in this match to try to get a couple of poles. Mate, I was just expecting the Sixers to bowl first. That's supposed to happen, and now you've thrown an absolute curveball.
Sorry, mate.
Just quickly, we've got a comment here from Mayan G Gaming, who's awesome contributor last round. Thanks, buddy. But he's also asked about Kerr, and he wants to know if Hayden Kerr might be a good bowling option. He's bowled some good spells, and he can also bat as well. What do you think of Kerr for this round, mate?
Yeah, well, probably not this week because, as we were speaking about with Dwarshuis and Bartlett, he might bowl early, but he's not one of those opening sort of couple of strike balls. Maybe Bird out, does he take it? But I'll just expect Jack Edwards to be that other bowler with Benny Dwarshuis up top, and he just bats a little bit too low for me. But he's a bit of a forgotten man. He had a poor year last year. Obviously, I think he had some injury as well that played a big part in that. But the year before, I think it was the year before that, he hit 100 against the Strikers.
He was unreal, yeah.
He hit 100.
A very relevant player.
Exactly. So I think moving forward as an all-rounder, he might be a really good point of difference to put into your lineup. So definitely someone to be keeping on your sort of short list each week, but maybe not this week just with the weather.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Dyl and I spoke last week. If Jack Edwards' name wasn't on that team sheet, then I think Kerr becomes a much better option because he's a bit more likely with the ball there as well. JT's also mentioned a nice little stat here from JT. Thanks, mate. He said that spin bowlers average 11.2 GDS points when bowling in the second innings at Coffs Harbour. So we want to be. We don't want to really be adding any spinners if that's the case, and particularly not in that second innings. So the likes of Swepson or Kuhneman, some people might like to play, or even Akil Hussain, who's looked pretty handy, but without getting that big bag of wickets yet. If anyone's thinking about playing them, that's a really good stat there from JT. If they're bowling second, just be mindful that the stats don't really favour them. So thanks for contributing that there. And hey Reese, thanks for joining us, buddy. We've just had a shout out in the comments. Anyone that lives around the Coffs Harbour area or got the Coffs Harbour weather app up on their phone can send through some weather updates here. That'll be fantastic so that we can make some lineup adjustments if we need. And hey Bales, the last player that Dyl mentioned that he was going to look to play in his squad was Josh Philippe. He likes that he's already scored a big 100 against the Heat this season, and he's looked at some stats and that has shown that the wicketkeeper position score really well against the Heat for some reason. Now, I don't know if that's because of just some of the players that the Heat have played in that position, or if it's because they're getting a few more dismissals behind the stumps as well. But Dyl has seen a bit of a weakness there in terms of the Heat against wicket keepers. So he also likes the fact that he scored 41 last year on the same ground against a very similar bowling lineup, and he wants to get some points safely there in his team early. I'm not too sure if the Sixers bat first and the ball's swinging around a bit with Xavier Bartlett and Spencer Johnson, but Philippe's been in some pretty good form, and I probably can't say no. Take him out of your lineup. He'll go well regardless, won't he?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, if the game's not rained out, Philippe's in good form, and he's that player that when he's in good form, it's very, very hard to leave him out of your squad. You've got to play him, I think, when he's in this type of form, and but obviously, as I said, I'm probably not looking at playing any players here. If they bat first, that maybe makes it a bit interesting, because if you bat first, he's got a bit more of a chance to have a bit more of an innings. But if the Heat bowl first and the Six are chasing, it's just a bit nerve-wracking, hoping that the weather holds off for that long. And I do feel like there are a couple of good wicketkeeper options this week that you can plug into your squads. I think particularly in that Melbourne derby, which I'm sure we'll speak about soon, as well as a couple there that I like.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. There's also a good wicketkeeper or two in tonight's late game. So we'll get into a discussion about the Scorchers versus the Thunder now, and that kicks off at 8:15 this evening. I think we've got about 14 hours straight of cricket today, which is just unreal, particularly for us that are still on holidays and can sit in front of the couch watching the test and then a double header of Big Bash. How good is that? So we head to Perth.
We're not complaining.
Not at all. We head to Perth for that second round this evening, and for Optus Stadium, we can see that the average GDS score is about 38 points per player, which is the fourth highest ground around the country, and the score in the second innings is a little bit higher. So those teams that are batting second, there seems to be a tiny little edge or favour batting second. Scorchers allow an average of 32 game day squad points, and they score an average of 38 themselves. The Thunder allow 34 and score 38 themselves as well. So very similar in terms of points for and against across the board. But one big score sort of blows that out of proportion. We sort of look at 40 being a really good number to target, and the low 30s as being a sort of poor average score across the park. So these teams are on the higher end of things, so we could expect plenty of points with both bat and ball. Bit of squad news. We know that Josh Inglis won't be in the Perth squad anytime soon. I think he's still rehabbing a calf injury, and he's got a bit of an eye on the Sri Lankan series. There won't be Mitch Marsh or Jai Richardson this round either. Although they're both not playing in this test match, there is a chance that they might be available on the 7th for their clash against the Renegades. I think Adam Voges came out and said that he'd like to have them available. And he also said that Aaron Hardy won't be too far off with the ball. Now, what does that mean for blokes like Cooper Connolly Bales if Aaron Hardy gets plenty more overs with the ball?
Yeah, well, we've already seen last sort of couple of games that Cooper Connolly unfortunately hasn't been bowling as much. It's been really good to see that he's been able to really keep it up with the bat and continue on his merry way in really, really good form. Obviously been the top run scorer in the competition at the moment. But yeah, just with the lack of bowling, I think he might he's not going to be in that sort of your Matt Shorts, your Jamie Overtons, where you play them most weeks. I think he might fall back into the matchup, see how it's looking there. And that's the worrying thing. Whereas I think Aaron Hardy, if he's bowling, I think that elevates him back into, like we've seen the last couple of years, he's been up. Matt Shaw obviously has been the GOAT last couple years in game day squad, but Aaron Hardy hasn't been that far away, and he's been sort of top 3 all rounder. So I think Aaron Hardy would then go into that. You're probably going to put him into your lineup, I think, most weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. And Hardy was just incredible with the bat last season, wasn't he? I think he only ended up taking 5 or so wickets, which isn't a huge stack, but I think he was a bit more reluctant to bowl himself given he had the captaincy. And I think he might, if he's fully fit, I think he might be more likely to get plenty more overs, which could mean he can be great in that all-rounder position. But yeah, I think it's tough to play Cooper Connolly this round, given that he might end up being just about a bat only at either 3 or 4. And really, we want the blokes in there that are going to have multiple roles with both bat and ball, given that we've, the all-rounder position is not just really the most consistent, but generally the most fruitful in terms of points as well. If you can get a Jamie Overton type bat or bowl.
The one thing I would say this week, though, I think Connolly is still good to plug in because I think he could bowl, because we did see Agar in the last game on New Year's Eve. He went off the field. I think he only bowled 1 over, and he didn't bat. Obviously, he had suffering from back spasms. So whether that's cleared up by now, obviously we'll find out when the team sheets are named. But especially if Agar's not named, I think Connolly has to be a lock in your squads, because I think if he's not playing, Connolly will bowl, I think, his 4 overs, because we know the Scorchers do like having one spin bowler bowling their 4 overs, and maybe Turner gets an over, maybe, and Connolly gets 3. But yeah, I think if Agar's not there, I think Connolly would be an absolute lock.
Yeah, great shout there, mate. I know that Voges did say that Agar had been recovering fine, and he was training as well. It was just more sort of precautionary. But yeah, if he's not on that team sheet, if they want to give him an extra couple of days rest, then yeah, spot on. I think Connolly might be able to find a way into our all-rounder lineups, and there'll be a close eye, of course, on Aaron Hardy as well, and see how relevant he is with the ball moving forward. Alrighty, mate. So we've got a couple of other relevant players. I'll rattle off a couple of names, and then we'll get into the Perth guys first. So from Perth, I like, dare I say it, and Dyl will hate me for this as well, but Finn Allen roars back into contention all of a sudden. Do we chase last round's points, or are we smarter than that, Bales? What do you reckon? Let's start with Finn Allen first.
Yeah, I think it's a bit similar to what I was saying with Chris Lynn. I think with these players, especially when you're talking about some of the best batsmen in the shorter form, and we know Chris Lynn obviously is, and Finn Allen is one of those as well. I think when they get that innings under the belt, especially Finn Allen, new to the BBL, you got to be unlucky as well. Got a couple of really good deliveries as well, a couple of poor shots as well, but those first couple of deliveries where he got a 6, then a 4, then he got next ball, he looked good with that shot. So I just think that 50, putting that good innings together, I think that'll sort of get him going for the tournament, and I think he'll be making some good runs. And you guys both had him up in the sort of your top sort of 5 or so batsmen heading in your rankings heading in the season. So I think we can't really forget that, and the fact that he's been an international player for New Zealand for obviously for a number of games. So I think that I like him, and he's definitely very much in the mix. Got him in a couple of squads at the moment, but I might put him in all of them, seeing how I feel as we get closer to the game.
Yeah, we did have him in our top 5s. I had him at 5, I think, and Dyl had him at number 1, just because of how good he's been for his country, and we thought that he might be able to find the conditions here fairly similar to what he plays in at home, or at least acclimatise to them fairly quickly. And it's been a tough watch until that innings, and yeah, he looked pretty good. Dyl also sent me an article where he came out and said that he actually changed his setup a bit for the Aussie conditions. And then he realised that it didn't work after those 3 or 4 at-bats. So he said he just went back to what he knew. And we saw what happened when he went back to what he knew. So hopefully he's got a bit more confidence there. He's made things really simple for himself again. And yeah, that was an explosive innings. So let's hope that he can repeat that. And he has found himself back into my squad. So I think I've played him for those 6 points, 4 points, 0 points. Obviously missed the big one, and now he's back in my side again. So you guys do the maths. It's not difficult to work out how he's going to go again this round. But if most people are going to play him, then then they can go down with me as well.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see as well if Ferguson takes that first over, which we imagine he does, and if Finn Allen gets on strike, you got international teammates bowling to each other, bowling and batting to each other. So it'll be very interesting to see how that does go, because obviously they would have faced each other a lot in the nets, so they know probably the tendencies. That'll be interesting little battle there.
Who do you reckon might get on top?
Oh, that's a good one. It's funny. Ferguson coming off a bit of a poor game last one. Finn Allen coming off a good game. You could see it flip. You could see Allen not getting too much, but hopefully for us, if we've got both of them in our squads, we want Finn Allen getting a 50 or so, and then Ferguson getting at all the other batsmen besides Conley if he makes a bit of runs. So, but we know it doesn't work like that. So it's going to be tough.
So let's talk bowlers then, mate. Ferguson, is he a chance in either of your teams?
Yeah, potentially. This obviously we know that Optus Stadium Perth Stadium is very good for your quick bowlers, and I think Ferguson being a very good short form bowler with that pace and change ups as well, I think that'll go really well on the Perth Stadium pitch. So he's definitely in a couple of squads, and a bit like Finn Allen could find his way in all four of my squads before the game starts. Because I just think you get those first couple of overs, you'll get over in the surge, and then he'll get one of those death overs, or even a couple of death overs if he only bowls one early. So I think he's a good option this week.
Yeah, I agree there as well. The Scorchers, quick bowlers against the Scorchers are averaging 35 points, whereas spinners are averaging less than 10. So if there's any vulnerability there in the Scorchers batting lineup, it's definitely through pace. And we know that Lockie Ferguson has plenty of that. And like you said, he'll probably want to get on top of his fellow countrymen there, and that will be a good battle. Let's just hope Finn Allen's down the other end. Ferguson can take a couple of poles, and then Finn Allen can go to town on Wes Agar. Is he someone that we should be considering for our lineups, given how he's outscored? He's outscored Ferguson. Ferguson's gone 40 and then 7, whereas Agar's gone 84 and 97. Firstly, where did that come from, and is that likely to continue?
Yeah, well, obviously I know him quite well, being a strikers man, and part of me is just like, why could he do it more consistently at the strikers? But also part of me is happy for him, because I think he has got the talents to be a good bowler. He just has been that sort of inconsistent and going for a lot of runs. So I think he's a pod. I think I'd still rather play Lockie Ferguson. I think Lockie Ferguson's got a lot more runs on the board at both sort of competitions around the world, like BBL, IPL, and then also for his country, whereas Wes Agar probably doesn't have those same accolades. So I think I'd be backing him in, but I do have a Platinum Agar, and I don't have anything more than Silver Ferguson. So that Platinum Agar is currently sitting in my champion lineup. So hopefully he gets a wicket or two and can get a solid enough score.
Okay, yeah, I think Agar's in line for a bit of a down spot here. He's had two really good matches in a row. It's obviously really tough to stay that consistent all the way through. So I'll look elsewhere. But if anyone wants to play him, he's in some form, and if the Scorchers want to go after the Thunder bowling, then he's definitely someone that can take a bag, and we've already seen that as well. What about the bowlers in orange, though, mate? We know that the Perth conditions definitely favour the quicks. Jai Richardson won't be playing for the Scorchers tonight, so do you like any of their bowlers outside of him?
Yeah, I think Barendorf's always got to be in the mix. He's obviously one of the best BBL bowlers that the competition has seen, just with his just consistency across a number of years, and also the fact that he's obviously very, very damaging at Perth Stadium as well, and obviously that's where this game is. So could be a good option as well. It falls in that category of the light, I guess. You're looking at your matchups, I think, and with the Thunder, Warner, Bancroft, Rutherford, I'm expecting, well, hopefully at some point he finds some form. So I don't know if I want to play him against the Thunder, just because I might have a couple of Thunder batsmen I want, but Barendorf has always got to be in the mix, I think. And Lance Morris, we saw as well on New Year's Eve, find a little bit of form as well. So he could be a nice pod that you could look at as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there'll be a lot of teams rolling out at least one quick from the Perth team. And Barendorf's been really consistent, 50 plus in each of his matches so far. And he's averaging 13 dot balls as well. He's just so good at early on. And then the later he bowls as well, when the opposition is going after him, he's just more likely to take some poles then as well. So I think he will feature quite heavily across some of my squads, and might see a little bit later on. I've also got him penciled in as someone that I've got a little bit more faith in terms of my head-to-head matchup against Dyl during our Bro Down Showdown. So, yeah, I think big things for Barendorf tonight. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets 2 or 3. But then, going head to head with Lockie Ferguson. How about those Thunder batsmen though, mate? You mentioned Warner, Rutherford, could be anything, but Billings, who we can play. Can we play him in our wicketkeeper spot as well? Does he look like a good option for tonight?
Yeah, I think he could be because he's going to be. You'd expect him to come in a little bit later on in the innings, at least you'd think after the 5th over mark, unless the Scorchers can get maybe 3 or 4 early wickets and he comes in a bit earlier. But I just think when the ball's not moving as much, he can get at his ramp shots, he can get at his reverse sweeps, can get all these creative shots. So I think he could be someone that gets 20, 30, 40 runs and maybe puts on 40 game day squad points. And then we know as well from last week, I think he had 3 catches in the innings. He's always obviously behind the stumps for the Thunder. So hope to cover extra bonus points for some catches would be nice as well. So I like him. But then the other player I'm actually a big fan of, obviously Warner, a bit like Lynn and Finn Allen. Good innings last game. That might kick him on as well. I do really like Daniel Sams, though, this week. And the reason I like him is that he obviously bowls all 4 overs. He bowls at the death. He bowls normally a surge over and a couple of those overs after the power play early on. But I actually like him for his batting this week. I think that Scorchers generally get some early wickets with the ball moving around. But I think later on in the innings, I think that Sams could come in and get a quick fire sort of 20 or 30 runs and put on some extra points there. So I've actually got him in a couple of my squads this week, thinking that he could be a good option, even if you sort of look at Scorchers and think it's a bit of a tougher matchup. So what are your thoughts on Daniel Sams this week?
Yeah, I really like that call, mate. He's probably my 5th or 6th all-round option for this round. So he's in 1 or 2 of my squads at the moment. I think you're spot on that there's every chance that him and Billings could be 2 of the players that are in around the time of the power surge, which we know is just fantastic. And we've seen Sams go absolutely off with the bat at various times, but any points off the blade are often a bit of a bonus because we know how good he can be with the ball as well. My only concern might be though that if the strike, if the Thunder bat first and the Scorchers get on top of them and don't really pile on a big score, and then the Scorchers go really well with the bat themselves, then Sams becomes a little bit less relevant. We really want him chasing a big score with the bat in his hand, or bowling it plenty of runs as well, or at the back end of that first innings. So there's every chance that he can go off, but there's also every chance that his role is minimized a little bit because of some of the players around him and playing up against a really awesome Perth team.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's a good call. I like it.
I do like the Billings call as well. If we take away that massive 131 he scored, when really, let's be honest, he should have been out a lot earlier, but for that ridiculous non-run out appeal, what is happening there, Melbourne Stars? We take away that 131 and he's still averaging 35 game day squad points, which in a volatile position like the bat and wicketkeeper position, 35 points is fine. He'd almost comfortably take that every week. So he's been consistent without being super amazing. So I think there's a bit of a flaw there, and he's every chance to get some catches behind the stumps, and without Jai Richardson there as well. I think that's one less dangerous bowler that the Thunder batsmen are competing with, and every chance that him or the likes of Warner or Rutherford can get amongst some runs tonight.
And he was looking good as well in the last game until Sutherland took a screamer of a catch, obviously before that sort of got topped the night after. So, Billings is looking good, and I think he could be on track for a good one tonight. All
right. I might just throw back to a quick discussion regarding the Sixers and the Heat. We've got a comment here that it's pelting down in Coffs Harbour at the moment, and the wait for the toss continues. The weather app says that there are plenty of chances of showers throughout the evening, but it's going to potentially clear up a little bit, which sort of suggests a shortened match at the very least. Bales, you alluded to it earlier, mate, that you're probably going to steer clear of players from this game for this very reason. Is that what you were mentioning? You're sort of expecting a shortened game now?
Yeah. If it's pelting down now, and if they're expecting maybe less showers as it goes on, I think that you're pretty much locking in a shortened game as well. And normally, if there's not a game afterwards, they might have half hour or so extra to play with to push it back if need be. But with another game going on, I don't know if they've got the the necessary means to be able to push the game back further. So I feel like that's a bit sort of it's under a bit more of a constraint this game. So that's a bit concerning. And obviously, if we're not going to get a toss, we're not going to know who's bowling or batting first. The toss will go. Lockout will still lift for GDS at I think it's 5:34 my time, so that's 5:54 Eastern Daylight Time. So I think that with that, it makes it difficult to put really many of the players. And obviously for me, I'm trying to steer clear, I think, of most of them from this game.
So how long does that mean we've got now? Is that about 25 minutes until?
Yeah, 24 minutes until game day squad locks out. So I don't know if we're going to get lineups before it locks out, unfortunately.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Okay. So we made a deal earlier, Bales, that we were going to give ourselves 10 minutes to check the weather and that sort of thing before lockout does occur. So let's jump on to our preview of the third game of the round. That's the derby between the Stars and the Renegades at the MCG. Hopefully that's a cracker. Hopefully there's a bit of passion in that with both Melbourne teams wanting to get on top of each other for a win. Let's talk about some of the relevant players in this match, and the relevant players for me are all in that all-rounder position, the likes of Maxwell, Stoinis, and Will Sutherland. Any of those three that you like, mate?
Yeah, so Stoinis, I think, is the one I'm probably more keen on now the most, I think, which if someone asked me before the season started, who would you be more keen on? I think you'd probably be number 3. I think I'd probably be more keen on the other two. But with Maxwell, not quite in form, but he's the sort of player that we know can go off at any given point, and that catch he took the other night was absolutely incredible. And Sutherland as well, not great the other night, but still we know he can get it done with both bat and ball and in the field. But yeah, Stoinis, he bowled all 4 overs, which was a positive sign, I thought. And the fact that you mentioned it before with Hardy but not bowling with being captain, I've noticed a lot of the captains don't bowl themselves unless they are in there for their bowling. Like we've seen Henriquez like in his prime and stuff not bowling because we'd been the captain, and we saw it with Hardy. And Stoinis this year hasn't bowled much, but it's good to see him bowl 4 overs. I thought he bowled quite well. And if he's getting a couple of overs and batting at 3 and looking as good as we did, I think he's a guy that's going to be very, very hard to leave out of our lineups.
Yeah, absolutely. He's top of those 3 for me as well, mate. And I think the big reason for that is sort of the absence of Tom Curran and Bo Webster as well. They both, have that similar bowling style, and Stoinis does as well. So those are some two big names that aren't bowling for them anymore. So he's probably, got to take a bit more of that responsibility in his own shoulders. And we saw that they added Dan Lawrence, and he even got an over, and he took a wicket in that over as well. And Maxwell, did he even bowl at all? Stoinis getting all 4. So he didn't get a wicket in those 4 overs, but the fact that he did bowl all 4 is certainly promising. And if he's coming in at 3 or 4 as well, then, we talk about roles and trying to maximize players' roles to get the most points possible. Stoinis was one of the better roles in the competition, very similar to what Jack Edwards was doing when he was batting 3 and bowling 3 or 4. A lot of us were trying to jam him into our teams as well. So I see, Stoinis being at the top of that pecking order as well. It's disappointing that Maxi didn't even get out with the bat. Well, he got out there very late and just went for a big slog to win the match. But I actually had Maxwell in my team last round over Stoinis, but I think I'm going to flip that entirely. And I think Stoinis will get the nod in most of my teams this round.
Which we know what that means, don't we, Stewie? It means that Maxwell's going to go off and Stoinis isn't going to do anything.
Don't say it.
But looking at the bowlers, Maxwell didn't bowl an over at all. Harris, Steketee, Stoinis, Siddle, and all bowled 4. Then Usama Mir bowled 3, and then Lawrence got 1. So Mir and Lawrence were preferred spinners over Maxwell. So that's interesting there. And I don't like the fact they've bumped him down the order as well. The Stars lineup batting like this year's been really, really very chop and change, and players I don't think have been batting necessarily where they probably should be. But you've got like Duckett, Rogers, and even Harper at 3, Lawrence 4, Stoinis 5, and Maxwell 6. So it'd be interesting to see if they flip Harper down the order, which I think we've probably thought maybe most of the season, but they like him, I think, up there. And if Maxwell and Stoinis move back up a little bit more. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, it's frustrating the amount of balls that Harper chews up. Hey, all right. So that's a couple of Stars players then. Any Renegades that you think can be fit in our squads at all?
Yeah, Tom Rogers. I think he's shown he just gets wickets. He reminds me very much of not as good a version, but a very good version though of Jason Behrendorff. I think they're very similar. They just have a knack of finding wickets. Like they're most often they're going to get 1 for 20, 1 for 25 each game, and that's their floor. And then they've got the chance of getting 2-3 wickets, which we've seen Rogers do. And he's also quite handy with the bat as well. He's come out and hit a few boundaries. He did obviously against the strikers. So I think Rogers is a guy that I'm potentially looking at playing as well. But yeah, Stars do have a dangerous batting lineup. So that's made me a little bit cautious that I might put him out and favour another bowler, because we've got a couple of good options this week.
Yeah, interestingly, they've got a great team on paper, don't they? The Stars, in terms of their batsmen, but bowlers are scoring plenty of points against the Stars, which makes Rogers and of course Will Sutherland pretty good plays this round as well. So yeah, Rogers is definitely trusted with those crucial overs, and bowling at the death as well is obviously conducive to plenty of game day squad points. So yeah, good shout there on the Rogers. He was definitely a popular option last round when the Renegades had 2 games, so you got the best score out of both of those. But yeah, he's definitely got a good role and pretty handy with the bat as well. Any runs that our bowlers can get off their bat is just gold, isn't it? Yep. In this form. Alrighty, mate, running a fraction short on time. Let's jump to the final game of the round, and that's between the Hobart Hurricanes and the Adelaide Strikers. That'll be on. That'll be at 6:15 down there in Hobart. And that'll be on, what day is that? That's Sunday, isn't it? Yeah, so it's a really short round. Mate, are you going to have any positions left in your squad to fill with any Hurricanes or Strikers by the time we get to Sunday?
Yeah, I think Jamie Overton is in my lineup most weeks, so he'll be pretty much locked in there. And then outside of that, probably not a huge amount. I've got Chris Lynn currently in a couple of my squads as well. I think after finding a bit of form, you could go quite well. Ninja Stadium has got some short boundaries there, so I know for fact that Chris Lynn will be looking to target those. And I think the biggest question sort of on all of our sort of lips is Matt Short. Is he going to play? Is he going to miss? And if he does play, do you play him? Do you not play him if you just want to watch? Because we know how good he is if he's playing. He normally bowls a couple of overs and bats, but with a broken toe, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And because it's the last game as well, you may not have a huge amount of pivot options as well, because Overton will be locked probably in a lot of people's sides. But outside of that, you've really only got maybe a Chowdhury or a Mitch Owen that you could really pivot to. So I don't know what your thoughts are about Matt Short and if you'd be looking at playing him, but it's a tough one.
Yeah, we might be able to pivot to Chris Jordan as well. We saw that
Chris Jordan
in a bit of form last game, and that would obviously give you a bit more confidence to play him. Mitch Owen's got that, he's a really tough start. He can obviously go really well off the bat, but it's hard to slot him into that all-rounder lineup when he's not getting any overs with the ball. Hopefully next season when he becomes a bat only, he can become a bit more relevant. But yeah, Chris Jordan could be a decent play there if you want to take the gamble on Matt Short and leave that position open, because I'll tell you what, not many people will have 2 spots open for Short and Overton come that final game. So the GOAT of the comp could be a pretty handy pod. But a broken toe, how do you come back in less than a week from that? Surely there's a little bit more rehab required for that, isn't there? Mate, I also like a couple of bats in this game as well. Chrissy Lynn is definitely an option for me. Dill's pretty high on Ben McDermott this round, and I might flip a coin and maybe go the way of Shy Hope to finally, get a big score. He's been okay without really doing too much damage. He's bookended some pretty low scores with some scores in the 40s. So he hasn't, really stood out or done much. We know what kind of quality player he is, and it just might be this home game against the Strikers that gets him rolling and into a bit of form. So I might have a spot open for Hope, or if I panic a little bit too much and don't trust him, McDermott is a pretty good option there for me as well.
Yeah, no, a couple of names definitely consider for sure.
Yeah, so McDermott's got some pretty good form in the last couple. He started pretty slowly, but then he got an 89 and a 44, and he's 7th overall in terms of all eligible bats. So he's hitting a bit of form, and we love form in the Aus cricket competition. So I can see why Dill's pretty big on playing him this round.
I think he also scored 60 runs, if I'm not mistaken, against the Strikers early this season when they played Adelaide Oval. I think he top scored for the batsman there. So, yep, he's got the form as well.
There you go. Yeah, so he might like a couple of matchups from the Adelaide Strikers team. Alrighty, so on screen is a bit of a summary of the main players that I've spoken about tonight. That'll be in my squad, and Dill's sent through his squad as well. Obviously, there will be some big question marks about particularly a number of those Sixers players, and with the weather around, and I'm not sure how the toss is going, but we might not even have any information. So
so toss has still been delayed. So I just had a look on the out there, and it said it's delayed start due to rain, unfortunately.
There you go. So it doesn't mean we're not going to get a game, but it's almost certain that we won't have a full 20 overs, and that only means less chance of our players scoring well. And while some players can definitely go off, there's a limited likelihood that more than, one or two players go off. So I think Philippi will definitely lose a spot in my side, probably Edwards now as well. I'll keep Benny Dorsius in there for the next 10 or so minutes and think about if I want to keep him there. But anyone that either doesn't see the weather and leaves these players in their squad, or anyone that takes the gamble, it could pay off for them, particularly if the rain clears, but probably looking unlikely at this stage. Alrighty, we'll wrap up things very shortly, mate. But Dyl and I love the little head-to-head battle that we've got going on. He's been a little bit more successful than me over the last couple of rounds. Although looking at our players that we selected, none of them were really amazing. Fraser McGurk beat Seifert by about 28 points to 8 or something. So it wasn't really a big score, that one deal, that one. Overton obviously scored about a 60 odd, and Short didn't play. So I'm happy to take a point there where I can. And then Rogers was pretty impressive. And of course, Benny Dorsius had a down game, and it was all Bird taking wickets for the Sixers. So here are the guys that we're pinning our hopes on this round. Dill sent through his, and he went for McDermott. So I went straight head-to-head against him with hope in that same match. So that'll be a nice little battle. Dill's also gone Edwards and Ferguson playing tonight, and I've gone for Stoinis and Behrendorff, and we've spoken about a lot of these guys in plenty of detail. Who do you back in here, Bales? Who do you think's going to win?
Oh, I think I like. I reckon I might go 2-1 your way, Stuart. I think I like Hope there to bounce back to some form. I think with that rain-affected game, if Edwards doesn't get much of a go, I think Stoinis could beat him there. And I think that last one, I'd probably just lean Ferguson, but it could go either way. We know Behrendorff is very, very dangerous at Perth Stadium, so it could easily be 3-0 to you, Stewie. But I'm backing you, I reckon, this week.
Which means it's probably going to be 3-0 to Dill. Nice to have Ferguson and Behrendorff against each other tonight, and McDermott and Hope in that final match of the round. It's always good. So what we normally do is the loser has to open up a pack and send the cards to the other person. Because I won 1 point this round, one of the cards I'll get, and that'll go on the transfer market between the innings break tonight for 51 cents. So a bit of a thank you to those people that stick with us in the stream and hear me announcing that it'll go up for 51 cents. And the other two cards will go to Dill, although Bales, you're much better than Dill tonight, so I might even send you these two cards. But I'll pick one for the viewers. The viewers can get the card I'll go left. So I haven't revealed what the cards are yet. So they'll get a platinum for 51 cents. They can get a Kane Richardson tonight during the innings break. Two cards. On the right was a Matty Short. And in the middle, Tom Alsop. So two pretty handy cards there as well. We'll put our collective heads together, Bales and Dill as well, and we'll work out what we want to do with those cards. But that's the beauty of the Brodown Showdown, that there are some benefits for us, but also for the viewers as well. Bales, thanks heaps for joining me, mate. You were an absolute natural, and let's get you back on here nice and soon. Mate, good luck for this week. Good luck, viewers. Thanks for joining in, everyone. Go check those weather forecasts and make some changes to your squads now if you need to. I know I definitely will be. Thanks very much, Bales. Thanks, viewers.
Beautiful. Thanks, Stewie. Thanks, listeners. Have a good week.